Picture this for a second. Thousands of people in the arena chanting your name. Millions of TV viewers across Europe just watched the numbers appear on screen, and your country scored the most points. Confetti, tears, your national flag raised on stage. This is the brightest moment of your life, and it feels like from this point on, life will be one endless celebration. Now imagine 5, 10, 20 years have passed. What actually happened to that person next? Some Eurovision winners truly did conquer the whole world and became icons for decades. Others literally vanished from the music scene within months of winning, and today even a die-hard fan of the contest wouldn't recognize their name. And then there were those for whom victory turned into a personal tragedy, lawsuits, bankruptcy, or worse. Today we're going to walk through almost 70 years of Eurovision history and see what really happens to people after the spotlights go dark. Who became a millionaire, who became a taxi driver, and who turned their win into a political statement. Get comfortable. This is going to be a long and fascinating journey. Let's start with the most obvious example. Proof that winning Eurovision really can launch a global career. ABBA, Sweden, 1974. When the Swedish quartet performed in Brighton with an upbeat song about a breakup, no one in the audience had any idea they were watching the birth of one of the most successful bands in music history. After the win, ABBA signed with major international labels, and within a few years their songs were playing on every radio station on the planet. Millions of records sold. A musical that's still running on Broadway and in London, and even a separate holographic concert tour launched in the 21st century. The band members became so wealthy that, by some estimates, each of them is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. This is, without question, the greatest success story in the history of the contest. Celine Dion, Switzerland, 1988. Fun fact, Celine Dion is Canadian, but at Eurovision that year she represented Switzerland, which the rules of the time allowed. She won by the narrowest of margins, just 1 point. And although almost no one in Europe had heard of her at that moment, this very victory opened the door to the international market for her. What followed? A deal with Hollywood studios, the main theme song for a film about a ship sinking in the Atlantic, tens of millions of albums sold, and a Las Vegas residency that became one of the most profitable in show business history. In 2022, Celine Dion publicly revealed she has a rare neurological condition that forced her to cancel tours, and the whole world rallied behind her. Proof that she remains one of the most beloved performers on the planet. Måneskin, Italy, 2021. Fast forward a few decades, and here's the most recent proof that the ABBA formula still works. This Roman rock band won Eurovision with a raw, guitar-driven anthem at a time when the contest was dominated by pop ballads and dance tracks. Almost overnight, streaming numbers exploded. A decades-old song by an entirely different band started trending again after fans noticed the singer wearing a t-shirt referencing it, and Måneskin found themselves opening for the Rolling Stones and playing sold-out arenas across the world. They're widely credited with proving that rock music could still break through in the streaming era, and today they're arguably the most commercially successful act to come out of Eurovision since ABBA, selling out stadiums well beyond Europe, including in the United States and South America. Netta, Israel, 2018. Her song became a viral sensation thanks to its quirky, meme-friendly chorus and a distinctive loop station performance style. The win triggered a wave of imitators and parody videos online, and for a while it felt like Netta was everywhere. However, translating that viral internet fame into a lasting international recording career proved much harder than it looked. later singles didn't replicate the same explosive reach abroad, even though she remains a well-known and respected artist within Israel itself. It would seem, here's the formula for success. Win Eurovision, become a star for life. But the truth is far more complicated in reality. The vast majority of Eurovision winners do not become global stars. Here are a few stories that prove it vividly. Secret Garden, Norway, 1995. A duo pairing an Irish violinist with a Norwegian pianist won with an instrumental composition, no lyrics at all. It was a sensation. For the first time in years, a wordless song took the crown. But after the win, the duo couldn't translate that into worldwide success. Their music stayed niche, popular mainly among fans of neoclassical instrumental music, and today they're remembered chiefly by die-hard contest enthusiasts. Maria Serafovic, Serbia, 2007. A powerful ballad, phenomenal vocals, and a win for Serbia, which had just returned to the contest as an independent country after the breakup of Yugoslavia. For Serbia itself, this was a massive national event. But beyond the Balkans, her career stayed regional. She continues to sing, releases albums in Serbian, and is a genuine star at home, yet a global breakthrough on the level of ABBA never came. Riva, Yugoslavia, 1989. Here's where the story turns genuinely bittersweet. This Croatian band's 1989 win turned out to be Yugoslavia's last Eurovision victory. Within a few years, the country would collapse amid brutal wars. A song meant to unite the different peoples of the Balkans became, in hindsight, a symbol of a country that no longer exists. After Yugoslavia's breakup, the band's members scattered across the newly formed states, and the victory itself is now remembered as a melancholic final snapshot of a great country just before catastrophe. Bucks Fizz, United Kingdom, 1981. This group became famous not just for their song, but for a flashy stage trick. The female singers literally ripped off their skirts mid-performance. It brought them instant fame in Britain and several immediate hit singles after Eurovision. But within a few years, the band split apart amid internal conflicts and legal battles over the rights to the group's name. It got to the point where different former members spent years performing under similar, but not identical names, suing each other over who got to call themselves the real Bucks Fizz. Dima Bilan, Russia, 2008. At the time, this was treated as a huge moment. Russia's win came on its third attempt at the top spot, complete with a figure skater performing live on stage and a famous violinist joining in. For a few years, Bilan remained one of the biggest pop stars in Russia and much of the former Soviet space. But the story took on a completely different meaning after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Russia was suspended from the European Broadcasting Union and barred from the contest altogether, meaning this win is now frozen in a kind of political limbo, a reminder of just how deeply intertwined Eurovision has always been with the politics of the continent it celebrates. See the pattern? A Eurovision win delivers a powerful but very short-lived boost. What happens next depends on countless factors: the language of the song, record label support, willingness to tour for years, and, frankly, luck. Some Eurovision victories matter not because they made someone a millionaire, but because they remain forever etched in the contest's history as a cultural or even political moment. Dana International, Israel, 1998. The first openly transgender performer to win Eurovision. It was a genuine cultural revolution for what had, up to that point, been a fairly conservative contest. Her victory sparked fierce debate within Israel itself, with part of society treating it as a disgrace and another part hailing it as a huge step toward tolerance. Today, Dana International remains a respected figure and a symbol for the LGBT community worldwide, occasionally returning to the contest stage as a living legend. Conchita Wurst, Austria, 2014. Another story that reached far beyond music. The image of a bearded woman in a shimmering dress sparked a wave of debate across the world, from admiration to outright hatred, even official statements from some governments about boycotting the contest. After winning, Conchita addressed the European Parliament, met with political leaders, and became one of the most recognizable figures in the conversation about LGBT rights in Europe. The performer behind the persona, Tom Newworth, later partly moved away from the Conchita character, but has stayed active in music and the arts. Jamala, Ukraine, 2016. This might be one of the most telling examples of how a Eurovision song can become a political statement. Jamala's song addressed the 1944 deportation of Crimean Tatars, which is exactly why the lyrics walked a fine line under rules that ban overtly political songs. Still, the jury and viewers found the story powerful enough to hand Ukraine the win. After Eurovision, Jamala continued her music and public activity, and after Russia's full-scale invasion began in 2022, she became one of the most vocal cultural ambassadors for Ukraine abroad, using art to tell the world about the war. Nemo, Switzerland, 2024. The most recent addition to this list of history makers. Nemo won with a genre-bending song combining opera, rap, and drum and bass, performed while balancing on a rotating platform shaped like a broken circle, meant to represent a journey outside the male-female binary. Nemo publicly identifies as non-binary and became the first non-binary artist to win the contest, sparking celebration among LGBT communities across Europe and, predictably, backlash in some more conservative circles. Just 1 year later, Switzerland handed hosting duties to the following year's winner, continuing Eurovision's tradition of using the stage as a platform for conversations far bigger than music alone. Since we've already brought up Jamala, let's take a closer look at the fates of all three Ukrainian wins, since for this audience, it's probably the most interesting part. Ruslana, 2004. Ukraine's first Eurovision win. An energetic performance with drums and fire on stage made Ruslana an instant star, not just in Ukraine, but across parts of Europe. But perhaps the most important part is what happened after her music career had already peaked. She became a highly active public and political figure. She took part in the Orange Revolution and later in the Revolution of Dignity, where she camped out on Maidan alongside the protesters. Today, Ruslana continues to make music, does volunteer work, and remains one of the most recognizable cultural figures in Ukraine. Jamala, 2016. As mentioned above, but worth adding that after the full-scale invasion, Jamala didn't leave the country for good. Instead, she keeps combining performances around the world with fundraising for Ukraine. Her song, 1944, has taken on an even more tragic resonance in the context of the war launched by Russia. Kalush Orchestra, 2022. This is probably the most unusual victory in the contest's history. It happened during a full-scale war, and the song Stefania turned into an unofficial anthem of resistance. The band members even auctioned off their trophy for charity, and the proceeds, worth millions of hryvnias, went toward buying drones for the Ukrainian army. So what are they up to now? The band hasn't broken up, though rumors to that effect have surfaced from time to time. Frontman Ola Saik has explained that several projects now run in parallel. Kalush Orchestra itself, a solo direction called Kalush, and another group. The band actively tours Ukraine and abroad, releases new music, and remains one of the symbols of cultural resistance. That said, it hasn't been without controversy. The group has faced criticism a few times for not officially confirming every charity fundraiser attributed to them. 3 Ukrainian wins, and 3 completely different stories about how a song contest can intersect with the bigger political story of a country. And finally, a few stories that will genuinely surprise you. Johnny Logan, Ireland. The only performer for decades who won Eurovision twice as a singer, in 1980 and 1987, and also wrote the winning song for another performer in 1992. That's earned him the nickname Mr. Eurovision. Yet despite this unique record, his name is far less known outside Ireland than you might expect. Loreen, Sweden. Another performer who managed to win twice, in 2012 and 2023, 11 years apart. That's an extraordinary feat. Most performers are thrilled just to reach the final once, and Loreen somehow came back after a decade and triumphed again. Today she's considered one of the most successful figures in the contest's history precisely because of this unique double win. Alexander Rybak, Norway, 2009, set a record for the highest number of points at the time and became a genuine star across Scandinavia. But despite the sudden massive popularity right after winning, he deliberately chose not to aggressively chase the global market, focusing instead on a career in Norway and neighboring countries, where he remains a hugely popular artist to this day. Duncan Lawrence, Netherlands, 2019. His ballad became one of the most striking streaming success stories of recent years, racking up 1 billion plays. But the performer has openly spoken about burnout, anxiety, and the pressure of fame that hit him practically overnight. A reminder that even commercial success doesn't always mean personal happiness. Salvador Sobral, Portugal, 2017. He won with an extremely quiet, almost intimate jazz ballad written by his sister, the complete opposite of the loud, pyrotechnic heavy shows typical of the contest. Shortly after winning, he suffered a serious heart condition and needed a heart transplant. He recovered and returned to music, but his story is a powerful reminder that behind even the brightest victories, real personal struggles are often hiding. Before we wrap up, it's worth stepping back from individual winners for a moment, because sometimes the real drama isn't about what happened to a person after their win. It's about what happens to the contest itself. The vote rigging accusations. Eurovision's complex mix of jury votes and public televotes has fueled endless conspiracy talk over the decades, with fans and even broadcasters occasionally accusing neighboring countries of trading points along political or cultural lines rather than musical merit, the so-called neighbor voting phenomenon. The European Broadcasting Union has repeatedly tweaked the voting rules specifically to reduce this kind of block voting, splitting jury and public scores, and changing how they're revealed live on air, all in an attempt to keep the contest feeling fair. The year there was no winner at all. 2020 remains the only year in the contest's history with no Eurovision at all. The edition planned for Rotterdam was cancelled outright because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the first cancellation since the very first contest in 1956. It's a strange footnote. An entire generation of songs, rehearsed and ready, that never got their moment on the Eurovision stage, and a handful of performers whose what-if story we'll simply never know the answer to. Boycotts and expulsions. Eurovision loves to present itself as being above politics, but the actual history tells a different story. Russia was expelled following its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Belarus was removed from the 2021 contest after submitting a song widely seen as mocking the country's pro-democracy protest movement. And in more recent years, several countries have chosen to boycott the contest entirely over the participation of Israel, turning the annual song competition into a genuine diplomatic flashpoint year after year. For a competition built around the idea of countries celebrating music together, Eurovision has spent an enormous amount of its history tangled up in exactly the political conflicts it claims to rise above. The organizers behind the curtain. It's also easy to forget that behind every winning artist stands an entire national broadcaster, a songwriting team, and sometimes years of strategic planning. Countries like Sweden have built something close to an industrial system for producing Eurovision-ready hits, running massive national selection shows, and working with professional songwriting camps specifically tuned to what tends to succeed on the Eurovision stage. That's a big part of why Sweden has won the contest more times than almost anyone else. Success at Eurovision, it turns out, isn't only about raw talent. It's also about infrastructure. What actually happens to Eurovision winners? The truth is, there's no single answer. Some, like ABBA, Celine Dion, or Måneskin, turn one single night into decades, or at least several very good years, of global stardom. Some return to a normal, quiet life back home, staying beloved only within their own country, like Maria Serafovic or Alexander Rybak. Some, like Duncan Lawrence or Salvador Sobral, get a harsh reminder that fame and physical or mental health don't always go hand in hand. And for some, the win becomes not a musical but a historical, even political moment, one that forever ties a song to the fate of an entire nation, as happened with Ukraine 3 times over the past 20 years, or to a broader fight for recognition and rights, as it did for Dana International, Conchita Wurst, and now Nemo. What all of these stories share is one simple truth. The 3 minutes on that stage are only the beginning of the story, never the whole of it. The trophy gets handed over, the confetti gets swept up, and then real life, with all its unpredictability, takes over completely. Eurovision is not a guarantee of fame. It's more like one bright flash, and what you do with that flash afterward depends on the person themselves, the circumstances of their country, and, let's be honest, plain old fate. Which winner's story surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments. And, of course, subscribe to the channel if you want more deep dives like this into music history. See you in the next video.